Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to generate reports from queries, and this will be done in Microsoft Access. And then once we create the reports, I'll show you how you can export them in both PDF and HTML file formats. So by exporting them in PDF file format, they're suitable to print and they're suitable to link to from web pages. By outputting them in HTML format, you can use an HTML code generator and make further changes to the HTML, and then of course they're also able to be published on the internet. So I'm going to start by going back to a query that I previously created, and that'll be the query, and if I run the instructions, that should look familiar. It's the query that shows the employee's last name, first name, social security number. That all comes from the employee table, and then it shows the job, which is job title, which is correlated data from the job table, and then the employee current salary, which is also a field in the employee table. And if we look at the SQL, this is a query that required the use of an inner join. So we correlated records in, when I say records, I mean rows. Rows and records are essentially synonymous. So it's about correlating records from the job table and employee table, and in correlating them, we matched the records on the primary key of the record in the job table with the foreign key of the records in the employee table. So hopefully all that is familiar from last time. And when we run the query, we get a result set, and the result set is pretty useful information, but not all that pretty to look at, nor convenient to look at, because I have to run this query in Microsoft Access in order to get to this. Now, if I wanted to share this with someone, I suppose I could print the screen and, embed the image that I get from print screen in a Word document or something like that. But even at that, it's going to look like this, which is not terribly attractive. So I have a means to take this data and to format it differently, and then also output it in some very useful file formats. Let's take a look at how that's done. I'm going to close the query, and I'm going to go to the home page, and take that back. I'm going to go to the create page, and I'm going to hold on just a second here. Okay, wanted to make sure my recorder was still going. Okay, so on the create page, then I'm going to generate a report, and if I look across the toolbar, I see there's a report ribbon, and I'm going to use the report wizard feature to walk me through this process. So this is going to lead me through the process of creating a report from a query in a very step-by-step fashion. So it's pretty much a goof-proof way of doing this. And so I'll click on Report Wizard, and I get an initial dialog box, and it wants to know what do you want to create the report from. And I want to create the report from the query that shows the employee and their jobs. Okay, and it's suggesting the right one. Now, if I don't want this, if it chooses the wrong one, I can create reports from tables. I can create reports from any other stored queries that I have, but I'm satisfied with this, and so now I need to tell it which fields to include, which columns of data to include, and I will choose the All button here and just transfer all of these over. Click the Next button, thus the idea of a query of a wizard here. And now it wants to know how do I want to view the data, and I can group it by either job or employee, and I'm going to group it by job and tell it Next. So I'll see a grouping of, all the faculty, followed by a grouping of all the administrators and so forth. And I'll tell it Next. And it wants to know whether I want to do any further grouping. So if I had subgroups within each of those groups, I could group down to another level, but I don't really. This report doesn't lend itself to that, so I'm just going to ignore this option and say Next. It wants to know within each group, how do I want to sort the data? I'm going to sort the data in ascending order. Okay, so that'll put the person with the last name ahead of the first, ahead of somebody else with a similar last name. So arrange it alphabetically by last name, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then I have three basic styles of format that I can use. I'm going to use the default, and you can play around with this. It's this preview feature never seems to work very well for me, so it's a lot easier if you're curious as to what these various formats are, just to run the wizard a few times and compare the actual output instead of comparing the preview. You have an option for orienting the report in either landscape or portrait orientation, and I'll choose to use landscape so I can get more columns. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Next. Wants to know what I want to call this. I'll call this Job Report, and I can change that later on if I want. So since job is in uppercase there, I think I'll change that to uppercase JOB like that. And then I have an option to either jump right into where I can manually reconfigure the report, or whether I see the preview first, and I want to see the preview first, so I'll tell it Finish. And this is what it has done for me. It's taken all the administrators, and there was only one, and it's grouped them. It's taken all the faculty, there were two, it's grouped them, and it's taken all the housekeeping, and there was only one, and then there were 3 IT workers. Okay, so you can see how that works. It's used the column headings from the table up here, which is not very attractive for a report that I want to publish. So I'd like to change that. Okay, and how can I do that? Well, I'm going to close up the print preview, and that takes me back to design view. And in design view, I can change that main heading if I want to. I can move it over and change its location from being left justified to centered. And over here where it says job underscore title, I can make that read uppercase J, lowercase OB, space title, and likewise where it says employee L name, I could change that to last name. Okay, and I can manually go in and configure a lot of things. There are some functions in Excel, and what it's going to do right now is pull the date and time, I believe, from the system. That's what now does. Okay, so you're familiar with functions from Microsoft Excel. There are functions in Microsoft Access as well. And now I'm going to take a look at the changes that I've made in report view, and you'll see that job report is centered now. I could have changed the font size, the font color. I mean, there's a lot of things I could do. And for the column headings that I've changed to job title and last name, that certainly reads a lot better than employee underscore L name or something like that. And down here, that's the function executing. Okay, so it is Sunday, March 6th. So there's my report, and I could tweak it more if I wanted to, but I'm going to pretend that I am very happy with this report, and I'm going to save it. And when I save it, it's going to save it under job report. Okay. Now again, I can change the name of it here. I could rename it if I wanted to, and maybe I will. See, I can't do it while it's open. So I'd have to close this first, and then I could name this, if I wanted to, something like RPT, much like I started my queries with QRY and employee or something like that. All right, so it's not important, but if I double click on it, it generates the same report. The same instructions are stored to generate this report. And there's my result set laid out in a report format. So it's much more attractive this way. Now, this is accessible from Microsoft Access, but likely what I want to do is send this to a printer and get paper copies of it, or email it to someone, or publish it on the web. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and leave the file open, go to the external data page, and if I want to save it as a PDF file, I have a tool for doing that. And I will go to the desktop where I have an appropriately named folder called Junk. And I'm going to name this EMP, and it saves it. It's attempting to save it in a PDF file format. So if you're familiar with PDF, you know it's a pretty common file format that is used extensively. And if I then minimize the screen, I really shouldn't have done that, but let me go ahead, and this wants to know whether I want to save the steps so I don't have to go through that wizard to export again. I'm going to ignore that part of it. And what I really want to do is get out to my desktop. So if I right click on the calendar and choose Show Desktop, I can find my folder called Junk, and in it is that file that I just created, and now it's ready to, send to the printer or save elsewhere, whatever I want to do. And the next step in the process is going to be to go back into Microsoft Access and save this as a web page. Okay, so here's my same report, and this time I'm going to choose a different file format rather than PDF. I'm going to save it under the More option as an HTML document, and it wants to know where I want to save this thing. It's attempting to save it in the Documents folder in my file system. I'm going to save it instead on the desktop in the Junk folder, and I'll call it rpt employee.html. And it's all set to do that, so I'll say OK to finish the operation. Now it wants to know what encoding scheme to use. The default encoding scheme's fine. Unicode UTF-8 is probably the better one to use. If it contains graphics characters that aren't part of the standard English alphabet, for instance, that's essential to use that. And I'm going to say OK to that. And I hope I've saved it in the right place. And it wants to know whether I want to save the steps to export it so I can don't have to go through this process again, this wizard process again. And I'm going to close without doing that. And now I'm going to close up Microsoft Access, look in my junk folder on the desktop, and I see that there's 2 versions of this. And this time, if I open the HTML document, it opens in my browser. And if I right-click on the browser window and view source, it will show me the code that it generates. And if I know anything about HTML, I can go in here and make some editing changes. Now, it does not use, if you know anything about HTML, it does not use HTML5. Okay, not sure what version of HTML it is even using. It doesn't say. It doesn't put a doc type tag up here. So there's a doc type tag that would tell me what version of HTML it's generating. It also does not use CSS, cascading style sheets. So this is pretty basic HTML, but nevertheless, I could open this in an HTML editor. Let me do that. That's what it would look like on a web page. Okay, so I've lost some of the formatting. That color band is gone and so forth. But on the other hand, if I close that up, and I happen to have an HTML generator somewhere, I think. Let me see if I do. Maybe I don't. I have Visual Studio, but I don't really want to open it in that. Well, why not? This is a program that's used for creating programs in .NET languages, and it should open it. And let's see, what is it open in? Got so many options. Let me close this up. I don't want to open it that way because I'm going to get myself into trouble doing it. I will show you that it can be opened in HTML with an HTML editor, though. There is one in Visual Studio. And if I launch Visual Studio and open a file and navigate to the desktop, to the junk folder, to the HTML file, it should open that up where I have a code window, and I can go in here and make changes to the program code if I know the language. I also have a designer window, so if I want to come in here, for instance, and change maybe the font or something on this, I think it's something I could do. Let's see. Let's say I want to make this font size. Let's say I want to make that font size 36. Hit the enter key. I've changed the font size. If I want to change the font style, I could choose another font. Somewhere I could choose another font. Let's see. Nope. Let's see. Okay, I don't use this editor that much, so foreground color. Alright, so I can change the foreground color of the document. Let's do that. This might change the foreground color of the text. Let's change the foreground color of the text to something recognizable. Whatever that is. Say OK. That would be hex value red, green, blue. It looks like it's an awful lot of green. Okay, so that would be the color saturation of red, green, and blue. And if I change it, I've changed not only the font size but the font color. And there is a way I could change the font too, but I don't want to go overboard with this. And if I save and exit out of this code generator and go back here to my junk folder and then open this again in the browser, you'll see that part of what I have here is what was generated in Microsoft Access, and part of it is what I have then enhanced with an HTML code generator. All right, so I want you to be aware of the fact that you can generate reports from queries, that you have the ability to publish reports in both HTML and PDF file format, and then we will take advantage of that in a assignment that I'm going to give you.